In the last part of the video of this series, we talked about how we can set up a simple Node Express application for our backend based on what we are doing for the chat room application. So this was where we ended it the last time. So in this section, we are going to talk about how we can handle the registration route as well as the login route. So before we begin, there are some couple of folders I did create, some couple of files. I created a default.json file where I'm storing my JSON Web Token secrets, and also I created some routes, users route as well as auth route. So without much delay, I'm just going to hop in. So right now, the first thing we are going to do is to come at the top here and bring in some things that we need. So I also installed bigcrypt.js, which is used for hashing our password. I'm just going to require that. So for the config, we did this earlier. Just for you to create a default.json file, then fill in your JWT secrets. It's just going to be config, and we have to bring in our JSON Web Token, and to be require JSON Web Token. We also have to bring in our database, which is going to require 2 folders away. Go into the config folder and get the DB file. Right now we are going to be defining some couple of routes, so I'm just going to comment this as a post route. We are going to be making a post request to API/users, and the description is just going to be register new user, and also it's going to have an access of a public access. It's just going to be a public access. Router.post. Whenever you make a request to API/users, you are going to be making a post request to the home page, and it's going to return a callback of request and response. Then let's export this. So that's it. Now inside here, there are a lot of things we are going to be doing. So before we begin, we have to grab some things from our body, from the request.body. We are using the structuring, so we have to grab the name, the password. Also we have to grab the email as well as the confirm password. Now there are some things we are going to be assigning to our variable. That's for the handling of our database queries. So let me just say queries over here. Let me just comment queries. So the first one is just going to be SQL insert, which is just going to be a simple insert into users. We have to set this to okay, for now we're just going to leave it this way, and for the second one, guys, please forgive me for I'm kind of checking some things, so that's why I'm kind of delaying. The second one, we are going to check whether if the user exists. So we are going to be using the email to check whether the user exists. So it's just going to be select from users where email is equal to the placeholder, and what you want to select is email. We have to get the email, the name, or let me just use asterisk to have access to everything we need. And we are just going to have a simple validation method here, not actually a method, a simple validation process. The first one is just going to be checking if everything, both the name or the password, or let's say the email exists from our request.body. So we are going to check if all of them returns. So if there is something like that, if there is not such things from our request.body we are getting from above here, we just have to return a response, the status of 400.json message with please fill all fields. The second one is checking passwords. It's just going to be check whether the password is not equals to the confirmed password. If it's not equal to the confirmed password, we are going to return this. We have to say please confirm your passwords. So once we are done by passing whether these things are true, that means we don't have any error. Then we have to check for existing user. So the way we can do that is to go to our database. We have to check the email, whether the user that is sending the request has already existing email. If not, then you can continue. So we have to check whether there is an existing email. So the way we can do that is to check whether we have an email. We have to check the length of the user is more than 0. Then if there is something like that, then that means that the user does exist. So we are just going to return a message that says sorry, user exists. So if there is no such thing, we have to define our new user. It's just going to be an object of name, password, and as well as email. So this is already okay for us to insert into the database, but you know that we cannot insert a raw password into our database. That's why we have our our JWT. Not JWT exactly, our bcrypt at the top. That's why I brought in our bcrypt over here so that we can use it to hash our password. So the way we can use that is to bring down our bcrypt and generate a sort. I'm just going to use 10. It's going to give us a sort, an error, and a sort. And after that, we just have to bring down bcrypt again. We are going to hash new user password. We have to put the sort over here. It's going to give us an error and a new hash. We have to make sure there is no error, but if there is, you just have to return a message that says let's say sorry, something went wrong. But if we don't have any error, then the new user password is just going to be the new hash. So that's how we can set our new password to a hash. So let's kind of console.log this new user to check how far we've gone. So I'm just going to open my console. Forgive me for all these jumps you see earlier. I'm just going to send a request, and when I send this, it says please fill all fields. We have name, email, password, and our confirmed password. Please fill all fields. Name, email, password, and confirm password. Of course, we don't need the confirm password over here, but I think we are lacking something here. So we made a mistake over here, so let's kind of send this again. Now in our console, you can see that we have the name, the password, as well as the email. So that's exactly what we have here. So right now we have to insert this into our database. Likewise, before we insert that, there is something that we need to do. Okay, don't worry, let's just move ahead. For now, we just have to insert this into our database. Remember our insert, I think, what did I name it again? Okay, SQL insert. So we are going to insert the new user, bind everything, is going to return an error or it's going to give us a result. So I'm just going to copy this again. Let me just copy 3 of them. So we have to check if there's an error. We have to just say sorry, something went wrong. Or if there's a result, now whenever we have a result, there's something very important we are going to do. We need to get back the last user. So the way we can get back the last user and send it back to the user that just made a request, let's say the person that just made a request, it's just very simple. We just have to say let last user is equals to let's select everything from users. Let's use the where clause where id is equal to this, and now we just have to make a db query. A query just have to create database. We have to get our hands on the results and get the last insert id. So the way we do it is just write result.insert id. It's going to give us a callback with the new user. Now whenever we get the last user that has just been inserted into the database, we want to assign the token to the user ID. So the way we can do that is now to make use of our JWT JSON Web Token. So we just have to use JSON.sign. The first thing is to use the ID is going to be recognizing. So we can use our email if you want to use your email, depending on what you want to build. For now, we are going to just make use of the ID. So result.insert ID, making use of your last insert ID. Secondly, we have to bring in our password. And the third one is going to be when it's going to be expires in 1 hour. And it's going to give us a callback with a token. So we now have to use a callback here. I made a mistake here. So callback and a token. So for the callback, we have to check whether we have an error. So if we have an error, we have to say sorry, something went wrong. But for now, this we are talking about the token. We can say sorry, unauthorized. Yeah, I think that's okay. And now beneath that, we just have to return a status of 200. That should say that everything is okay with a message. Let's not use a message over here. Let's just return the token and also return the user, which is going to come from our user above here. So the ID is going to be user array 0.id. Just going to copy this down twice. So the second one is going to be the name, and the last one is going to be the email. So that's it for the registration route. So let's kind of check everything we've done so far to see what we are going to have. I'm going to go to my database and clear the users table again. I'm going to come back here. You can see our previously inserted user. So I will send this again. So whenever we send this, you can see that we have some couple things as a response is sent back to us. So the first one is the token, and the second one is the user. So and containing the user credentials. So that's it. That's how we can set up our registration routes. Now let's head over and set up our login route. So For the login route, it's just going to be most similar to everything you see here. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it over here. I'm going to clear this everything here. So it's just going to be a public route. So for here we are going to use the module.export. Right now we have to bring in our router. Whenever it hits let's use the post, it hits the home page for the login. You have to get the request and the response. So the first one you have to get, I guess you guessed, the request.body. So we need to access two parameters, which is actually the email and the password. Now I'm just going to come over here. We have to use the simple validation from here and paste it. We have to make sure that the username and the password does exist, so change this to email. Now if it does exist, we have to check yes, let me just type down queries here. Let me just comment here queries, because we are going to be making some query requests to our database. So we just have to use db.query. Before that, I forgot to bring down for our check email. So right now we are going to check for the user. Now we have to bring in our DB. The first thing is to bring in our query, and now we are checking with the email. It's going to give us an error, and also the user. So we have to make sure that the user does exist. If it's less than 1, that means if it doesn't exist, it's going to return a response, the status of 400.json. Let's say the message is going to be user does not exist. Else that means that the user exists. So the way we can do that now is to get a current user. So we can say the current user is equal to the array user 0. Let's get our hands on everything inside the array, and beneath that we have to validate the password. So the way we can validate the password, let me just comment this first. Just very simple. We just have to bring in bcrypt. I think it's bcrypt.js, or did I use bcrypt. We have to compare the passwords. So we are comparing, let's use password here. Compare the same thing from our database. Then it's going to return a promise showing us that whether this is matched. Now if it's matched, that means it's true. You have to return the response, the status of sorry, this is supposed to be if this is false, 400.json with a message of invalid credentials. So guys, forgive me for the noise. So we just need to check whether the user exists, whether the passwords are the same. If not, it's going to say invalid credentials. Then same thing we did in the users to set up a token. So we're just going to grab everything from here. So from here, I'll come over here, and we can paste that. Sorry, my language has switched, so I'm just going to do that once more. Copy that and paste that. So what we did here was actually, whenever we say that a user exists, I'm going to remove this. Whenever we say a user does exist, we have to check whether the password, we compare the password with the already existing password in the database. Then it's going to return a boolean value of true or false. If the boolean value here is actually true, that means that we are not going to have this error, but if it's not true, that means it's going to be false. So, but once ever it's true, we are going to have our hands on the ID. So remember that we have to now remove this. We are no more registering, so it's going to be user0 dot id, and we can now configure our put in our config password, as well as when it's going to expire. If we have any error, we are going to say unauthorized user if the token is expired. Then if it's not expired, definitely we have to return the token, a new token, or we have to return a new token, as well as we have to return the user and all the user credentials. So that's it for the login routes and also the registration routes. On the next part of this video, we are going to manage our socket.io and also our React Native together to make sure that we can emit a message and also get the broadcast message. But before we do that, I'm going to create a helper function over here called users. So this users.js is just going to be a simple helper function, which is just going to definitely help us to store some things in a database, as well as receive some things. So what I'm going to do at the top right here is to bring in first our database. Don't worry, you're going to understand exactly what I'm doing, so that you may not be confused exactly. So bring in our database, we have to define an array of users. Let me use a plural. So what I'm actually doing is I'm creating something that is going to hold a couple users that's going to be joining in our chat room. Let's say we have 1 million users joining a single chat room. We need something like a container that can contain all the users together. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. First thing is to create a simple query, which is going to select everything from active rooms. So we just have to use the DB query. We have to query that, and now we have to get the error and the response. We have to push everything into that users. So we have to say users. Sorry, not the users. We have to get the rest 0. So whenever someone joins our chat room, that person is going to be added automatically into the active rooms. So we have to push everything back to this users array over here, because we want to make use of this in our middleware for the socket.io. Then beneath that, we are going to create a method called add user. So this for adding a single user is going to come with the name and the ID, as well as the room. So the name, we need to always trim the name to get rid of white spaces, as well as we need to make it a lower to lower case. The room is just going to be the same thing, trim it to lowercase. Now we have to define a very little query that we can use to insert more users to the active room, so that we can have as many users we want in the users array. Most of the things I'm going to do here is something that can help you to improve yourself. I'm going to leave some things the way it is, so that you can as well find a method to utilize most things. So for this one, it's just going to be insert query. So we have to insert into active rooms. we have to set everything with the placeholder. It's just going to be, for now we have to check the name, or if there's no name or there's no room, we have to return an error object with username and room required. So if there's a name and a username, all you just want to do is to get a name and the room, and now we have to insert it to the active rooms. So we just have to say insert query into the active rooms. Can now, then we also have to push it. Users that push that into. Okay, let me not just do it this way. It's your choice to insert this into the database, but I will also allow you to do that, but it's just a choice. But for now, let me get rid of this, since whenever we insert into the active rooms, it's going to automatically come over here because of this query over here. So we just have to return that exact users. But for now, let me just insert that. Let me not push it again, so that it's not going to be a double user in the array. So I'm just going to push the user. So our user is ID, name, and room. Then we can now return the user. So that's it for the add user. So what we actually did here was that whenever a user joins the chat room, the user is going to be automatically added to the active rooms, and then also whenever a user is being added, everything here is going to be added also to the active room. So this one grabs every user from our active rooms, while this one add a single user, or let's say a new user, to our active rooms. So it all depends on your choice. If you want to handle this in such a way that you are not going to have multiple users, you can definitely use user.find, something like that, to find the ID and get rid of the user, or block the adding of the user the second time. So guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the like button. So see you on the next video. On the next video, we're going to now handle the middleware for the socket.io, where we can actually emit a message, get a message, and send back to our Android app. So thank you for watching once more, and make sure you hit the like button as well as the subscribe button.